um, the effects of light pollution at night, then there's a whole range of things that are that we can talk about in terms of that. And so there are ecological impacts of a variety of kinds, and both on plants and animals, although the animals tend to be affected more directly than there's a list of studies that have been produced that show harmful effects on various kinds of animals, and that list seems to be growing longer all the time, which is just another way of saying they haven't got around to investigating the effects on a variety of things. But some of the things that we would be encountering possibly around here would be migrating songbirds, amphibians, and insects. And so these are harmful effects in a variety of different ways. And with regards to migrating songbirds, they tend to get confused by the light and sometimes run into buildings and things of that sort. But there are other more direct effects on other and different effects on other kinds of animals. We shouldn't probably expect that humans would be treated any differently with regards to this situation. And there's been a variety of studies that have been performed over the years. The American Medical Association specifically studied the effect of the blue-hued or the higher color temperature lighting then. And what they find is that suppresses melatonin formation, which in turn disrupts sleep-wake cycles of human beings then. Another study at Northwestern University, where they were studying older citizens here, found that light exposure at night was found to be associated with increased levels of obesity, high blood pressure, and diabetes, among other things. The big thing, however, is it's just a terrible waste of energy. It's estimated that something on the order of 30 to 35% of all electricity that's used in night lighting then really doesn't serve a functional purpose. And so we could expect then that that would be a significant saving in some instances, and especially in urban areas and so on. In addition, there's just an awful lot of people that like to be able to go outside and look at stars still, even if it's not as nice as it used to be then. And so that's a very strong, cultural aspect of our society that comes from a long, long time ago then, where people were using the night sky to orient themselves and so on. Now, one of the advantages to LED lights then is that there's a longer life associated with them, and there's also a significant reduction in energy that's required in order to do that. In other words, if you say previous lighting, then that electricity can be reduced by something on the order of 60 to 65% then by switching to LED lighting. However, if you're tripling the amount of light that you're putting out there, then that kind of works against that energy saving then, and in the end you basically end up at the same place that you started. It looks as though that explanation for the uptick in the night light pollution in the US in that 2011 to 2022 time period then was associated with the passage of the American Recovery Act in 2009, and it had some financial incentives then for improving energy efficiency and outdoor lighting and so on. So it looks like maybe the objectives weren't exactly met in that particular case. Instead, what people did was just use more lighting and ended up using the same amount of electricity anyway. So overall, there's some sort of general rules that I'd like to say with regards to what you should be thinking about when you're making decisions about night lighting, Dan. And that is, number one, only put the light where you need it. Only when you need it. We have timers available now that we can control the lights automatically overnight. No more light than is needed. And then finally, following up on my discussion about color temperature of the light, then it should be no bluer than is needed as well. And so all of these factors then can be taken account by zoning decisions, then, which in many cases in the zoning ordinances, they're really targeted to prevention of light trespass. But of course, if you deal with that problem, you help solve some of the other problems that I've been talking about as well here then. So the things that you can do then from the standpoint of a zoning ordinance then are you can control the light level. That makes significant effect. You can provide shielding, which deflects the light in various directions, depending on exactly how the shielding is constructed. So most of the time, then you'll find light fixtures that have some kind of a shielding around the top, not always. And that will prevent some of the light, at least, from going upwards and into the sky and the resulting light pollution that would go along with it. It's also possible then, in cases where there are light trespass problems, then to only shield a portion of the circumference of the beam then and block its impingement upon a specific target that you want to protect then as well. And then finally, you could include in your zoning ordinance some requirements with respect to color temperature. Now, that's not something that you're going to find typically in most zoning ordinances at this point in time, but there are cities, Ann Arbor is the closest one to us, that does have specifications in their zoning ordinance for allowable color temperatures. And typically, the requirement is that the color temperature be no more than 3,000 kelvins, and that is easily attainable with today's technology. It wasn't so much so 15 years ago or thereabouts, and that's something to think about. With regards to controlling the levels of the lights, and there is a professional organization that's called the Illuminating Engineering Society, and they produce a big book that basically gives maximum recommended light levels and for different kinds of situations. So depending on whether it's a commercial area or bounding on a residential area or a whole variety of things there, then so that can be a requirement to follow the specifications of that society, or you can just take the information that would be required for specific types of lighting situations and directly from the document. The way that shielding is often handled is to just simply say that the fixture should be fully shielded. And what that basically means then is there's no light exiting the lamp that's directed above the horizontal. You basically have some kind of hood over the top of it. And then it can be, you can do more than that. Really, you can target it to specific requirements that you have in a situation. And you can handle that in quite easily. Now, couple months back then, or a little bit more than that now, then we took the Sylvan Township zoning ordinance and just scanned through it, searching for the words lights and lighting and so on. And, identified those places that referred to outdoor lighting then in the zoning ordinance. And then just substituted what was in the existing ordinance and with some words that would be possible substitutes for that would be related to some of the issues that I've been discussing here tonight. That was a quick look at the zoning ordinance. In the one document that I prepared, I just gave a brief listing of what those specific parts of the ordinance were and so on. But we have offered to go through the entire ordinance in more detail sometime over the summer here and to kind of go through an initial markup then and provide that to the township then for their consideration. So with that, I'm going to stop and I can answer questions then that people might have. Go ahead.
Is there any part of the ordinance that attempts to control the light that people are using inside a building? Like to require people to keep it from spilling outside?
I don't think there was anything that I saw in that initial run through that sort of addressed that specific issue.
Where's the best place to go look at the stars around here?
Well, you gotta get away from lights. When I want to go see a comet or something like that, I get some distance away from Chelsea to start with and try and find some place that's got an open horizon as well.
Okay. Well, Steve, thanks for your time tonight. Sandy, I guess I don't know, Carol, do we need to ask the board? They would like us to go through and take their recommendations for looking at the ordinance.
You want to address the possibility, did you want to address the possibility that we were going to have an intern? Sandy, you want to talk about that?
An intern for which thing?
Oh, I'm sorry, for our ordinances, are you aware of that, Steve?
Yes.
Okay.
So I can say a little bit about it. So again, as I said, we just went through a quick search of the documents that were zoning documents and tried to identify all the places, but we didn't spend a lot of time at it. And so the idea would be that we would provide the resources, the human resources to actually go through and do a more careful evaluation, make sure that we've got everything covered. Then with respect to where in the zoning ordinance there's some reference to lighting and how that might be altered to address some of the specific issues that I read out.
Awesome, very generous offer.
I have a question. In the document, you reference several studies that have been conducted and body of ongoing research. I don't see any citations.
Yeah,
You have a list of citations to these journal articles.
I do.
Could you produce some? I think it'd be interesting to read through and see that. It'd be helpful.
Okay, well, thanks, Steve. So,
I'm with the Chelsea Derek guys, but we're looking for your approval for us to go through your zoning ordinance. We don't want to spend all that time.
No, and I'm from a protocol perspective, I think that has to come from the township board, so I think Sandy would need to take that back to the board for that.
happy to.
And
appreciate
we've already discussed it with
Yeah.
Kathy, so,
Yeah.
so she knows that, this offer is on the table.
No, we appreciate the offer. It's very generous.
May I ask, what is the time frame if, when the board looks at this, and if they approve this intern coming in and looking through these things, what is the anticipated time frame?
It'll happen sometime in the first half of the summer, probably.
Okay, so then the board will then refer it back to the planning commission.
Mhm.
So we're looking at maybe late summer.
Okay,
Okay, does that make sense for everyone?
okay, no, that sounds good. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Steve, thanks for your time today. Thank you. Thank you. So open the meeting up for public comment tonight, for anything that's not on the agenda. Comments? Your name, please.
Yeah, my name is Mike Van Gore, township resident, just a couple miles north of here. I'd like to build on a little bit on what Steve was talking about. I think Sylvan Township is in a very unique position. Mostly because of where we are geographically between Jackson and Ann Arbor. We're in kind of a little bit of a dark zone right here. And I would very much be in favor of, our township, pursuing some sort of ordinance. The International Dark Sky Association has a variety of shielded light fixtures with a maximum output of 3,000 degrees Kelvin. And they're all different types of styles and designs that would fit, pretty much any type of development that we would want here going forward. So there are a lot of resources, and I think it would really benefit all of the activities, nighttime activities, camping, everything that we have here to offer our residents. So I'd be very much in favor of that moving forward. To answer your question, there's a dark sky park just south of Jackson. The University of Michigan has a 20 telescope just off of
Peach Mountain.
North Territorial, yeah, just off north of here. I live a couple miles north of here, and just last night was the first clear night in a long time. I got my telescope out finally for first time in a week or so. So we're in a what they call a Bortle class 4, which is at the low end of 0 to a 9 scale. And so it would be great if we kind of preserve that for the benefit of everything else that we have to offer in the township.
I know since Cassie Lake closed, I don't see orange bullet in that hillside.
Yeah, right. The other topic I'd like to just bring up is, do we have any update on the revised master plan and the process that is going on? So
It's in process at this point, so the consultants have it and start moving forward.
just hadn't heard anything for a long time.
Yeah.
Just wanted to kind of keep that at the forefront of our vision.
Yeah, no, it's on the agenda.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any? Thank you. Yes, ma'am. You like stuck up.
Did you ask for things that aren't on the agenda?
Things are not. Things are not on the agenda. Nothing else? All right, so we're gonna close public comment at this point in time for non-agenda items. We're gonna move on to unfinished business. The first one is a review of the solar ordinance administrative review ordinance. For the administrative review ordinance, I'd like to. Rebecca, you're on the call. I think I'd like to go try to move forward with a public hearing on that would be my suggestion. If anyone else has any concern with moving forward for public hearing. Okay, so I don't know, Carol, what we want to pick the date for that.
Pick your date, June or July, June's coming up.
June's probably let's put it on in June.
So we should ask Rebecca. Becky, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So they're talking about setting a public hearing date for June for the administrative review ordinance. How does that work?
Okay.
How does that work for you?
Let's see, I'm grabbing my calendar, so that'd be June,
Uh,
the 22nd?
Yes,
Okay, that I can do. I was gonna say, I'm leaving the 25th, but yeah, so 22nd would be perfect.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and set that date.
you wanna vote on it?
All in favor? All right.
I'm sorry, who moved? I'm sorry. Who motioned?
So move. Yep. And seconded by Mike, to have the meeting on June 22nd.
Tom moved and Cliff second. Were there any other questions on the admin review? Okay, okay.
You have a question?
Well, I'm confused because I thought that there would be some comment before this got sent for a public hearing,
The administrator review,
for the solar energy system.
that's separate.
Okay.
I think what she's asking is, you want to know if the public comments could be taken tonight on things that are on the agenda as well, as things that are not on the agenda.
Yeah, so we're, right now, Tech, I'm only talking about the, administrative review ordinance, I'm not talking about the solar,
Okay.
Oh, this,
just the administrative review.
So, and also you need to understand, so you can comment on anything, but the actual public hearing is where the actual public hearing comments are recorded. I mean, we record everything, but the actual, it's a little bit different when it's identified as a public hearing and those comments are identified specifically towards that ordinance. Does that make sense? I mean, anybody can make a comment on anything at any time, but the record that goes to the township board is that of the public hearing only.
But my concern is, I think by the time it gets to the public hearing, we're pretty much ready to like vote it up or down. There isn't much chance for changes to content.
So your comments are welcome at any time, but the actual public hearing comments are what goes to the board. Okay,
Okay, so what I have to do is move on to the solar ordinance part of this, and Sandy, one of the things I'd like to request back to the township board, that we actually move this to a renewable energy review. I think we need to bring Rebecca in. I think we need to look at both wind, geothermal, and really kind of package this all up. So as I look through it, I don't need to get in that. Set a much broader scope, and I think we need to get around to all of it. So I think at this point it would be more to expand the scope of the ordinance and then maybe rename it, combine it, and turn it into some sort of renewable energy ordinance. That would be. Do I need a motion on that, just ask for request of that?
I'm sorry, to request it back?
Or to go back to the township board requesting them to expand the scope of it.
I think the planning commission should look at that in the totality, but I think since Becky's here tonight, you gotta look at the solar. I mean, discuss what you have for the solar. And if you want to combine that with the wind energy one, then that's a board question because you're incurring additional expense. Plus Becky's here, so she could give you some feedback on the feasibility of doing that.
Did you hear that, Rebecca?
Are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, I did. Yeah, so that's totally doable if you wanted to address wind and solar. If you wanted to do the work at the same time, I can see where that would make sense, especially in that it's, you're updating your master plan. I know we talked about that last month. That, doing all of these simultaneously seemed to make sense. So I'm happy to do that. And I'm also happy to answer specific questions about the solar if you wanted to do that now, or if you're saying you'd really rather just wait. I mean, that's totally up to you.
So Becky, this is Carol. We have a wind energy ordinance, which I've glossed over. And it came as a surprise to me when someone inquired about it. And I think it's very outdated and it doesn't really address, I think what people would be wanting to do individually is more utility, oriented. So
I did read that.
Okay, great.
I think the other part I just, Becky, is a geothermal, right? Someone comes in and wants to put in a large geothermal pumping station, right? How do we handle those types of developments too, right? Yeah, I know they're starting to spring up in various areas of the country, so it's why, so at least there are arms around what does it mean to us. regards to solar, I didn't have anything specifically there too much.
I've got a couple things. Under the definition section, on the sub bullet points, under accessory use, SES, this is minor, but ground mounted SES comes before building integrated, just alphabetically, just put those, I would say. And then on page 3, under accessory ground mounted SES, subsection 5, screening. It says accessory ground mounted SES shall be reasonably screened from view of the surrounding streets and roads to the maximum extent practical by garden walls, fences, hedges, landscaping, earth berms, or other means, except to the extent that such screening is either impracticable or result in ineffective solar access on the lot in question. But it doesn't say who would make that determination. In other sections, it indicates the building inspector would make determinations or the zoning inspector in another case. But there, it doesn't indicate whose discretion would make that call. I could see some debate as to what would be considered impractical or when something becomes ineffective access. So I would just indicate who would have the authority to make that decision.
Anything else? Clifford?
The other stuff is just minor formatting issues. And that's probably with the pictures. So there's some text wrapping stuff on page 4 under building integrated FES. There's some extra spaces in section 1, but that's probably when the picture was inserted and the text wrapping, it just messed with the formatting. But those are the primary comments that I have.
Nothing in the definition.
Oh, yes, one more thing. Page 8, under 16, additional study, subsection A, third party there is a modifier, that should be hyphenated. It's hyphenated in the other spots, preceding that. So I would just hyphenate that. And then, up above in 14.3, at the end of that paragraph, there's a comma there. I think that meant to be a period. So that's just a minor thing, but we want to get that.
I thought there were yes some sort of definition.
Yeah, they've been addressed in there and the changes have been made from it.
Courtney, anything like that? And go ahead.
I do. So, Rebecca, on Tuesday, I did a tour in central Michigan of the biggest solar array east of the Mississippi, which is in Rosebush, or it's in Isabella County. And then we also went to a wind generating also in Isabella County. But something that came up at our last meeting, and I looked through this, and it doesn't mean it's not there, I just couldn't find it. Solar easement. So for new construction, we want to make sure that if somebody's building a new house and somebody already has solar at their home, that the new construction does not
Basically, your neighbor's house can't block your solar.
right. It doesn't block the sun to the already existing solar system
What if a neighbor planted a tree in the house in 10 years from now?
or a tree.
Right.
And also the right to airspace was mentioned last time, and I think that's what it's that a new construction will not detract from the right to airspace of the person that already has a solar system. I think we need to include that, something like that, if it isn't there.
But doesn't that get a little tricky, Rebecca, though, if you're building a house next to someone else, and, just because the sun shines through your yard and you're building a new house, they can tell you can't build a house because you're blocking your sunshine, but it wasn't there before.
Yeah, I do see that in the note. It's one of a couple of questions I actually have for the planning commission. Because you're right, you raised it last month. And if you are interested in including that, I will look into that and see how they recommend doing that and see what I can put together for you. Because I agree how that could get getting tricky. That's a good way of putting it, yeah. But I'm sure it's not, I'm sure there are other ordinances that have done that, and so let me see what I can find on that.
Right,
Yeah, we have a
Thank you.
question from the audience, name please.
Yes, I have marked up, the ordinance. And I don't have enough for one for each, but, I do address this item that you're talking about on the bottom of the page there. Suggested language.
we just need to get this to Rebecca.
Yes,
Okay,
I will email it to Carol and she can forward it.
Thank you.
perfect, thank you.
Did you want one sitting off by yourself? So, and there's pretty much the common thread in here, a lot of this stuff doesn't seem to require. I mean, the only new stuff for residential systems, beyond what the building codes and utilities already require, is aesthetic concerns. And I think that this is kind of adding some burdens on people that, are actually trying to do some good for folks other than themselves. And, you know, things like the specifying a neutral color, that may seem simple to you, but that actually rules out most of the highest energy producing solar panels. Because a lot of those have a blue color, that's not a neutral color. You know, and
So just a question for you on this first page here, after the photoelectric, you scratch out for hot water and solar energy systems. Why would we exclude something?
well, because, two things, there are no building integrated solar hot water systems that I've seen, ones that actually take the place of roofing elements or windows or, you know,
But they could come up in the future, right?
but why, and it also, disagrees with your first definition of accessory use as FES at the top there. So it just doesn't seem to fit into that paragraph.
Yeah, so I guess Rebecca, why don't you take a look at this, talk about the comments from our citizens.
But the,
Understand what it potentially would, the difference it would make, but I appreciate you doing this.
you know, it seems that the regulations for utility scale seem appropriate. Although I think there's one item under the utility scale that would be overly burdensome. If you have equipment that's not making more than 45 decibels of noise right next to it, why should you have to do sound modeling, expensive sound modeling to prove that it's not gonna make 45 decibels of noise, you know, at the edges of the property? It can't, that's a physical impossibility, so I think you need an exception there.
Okay. Well, we're gonna have more discussion about this, so I think what I'd like to do is like give people a chance to read this and get the input. Also. The other thing, Sandy, one of the things I'd like to ask the township board is some other means of communicating to the overall township that we're looking at, this whole renewable energy space. So we get more, because I know the public notices, a lot of times people out here. Well, I didn't say very healthy, right? And how, and maybe there's some way, maybe we take out an ad. Do a local paper that goes along and say, hey, you need to pay attention to this because that could impact you.
Okay,
Just some other means of trying to drive.
We got some more taxes going out too. End of June.
Okay, well, that's maybe a bad.
yeah.
But a lot of people, their taxes go to the bank, right? Didn't receive a letter. Yeah.
But they still get a
Thing is, I
bill.
want to drive to.
Even with escrow, they get a bill.
Right.
Mhm.
Patrick, you got a comment?
Yeah, I did. I was kind of saving it up for whenever public comment was gonna be on this. I think it's probably a good idea to send this back to the board and have it expanded in some sense. But also because it gives the board a chance to sharpen up a little bit on why we are doing this. Right? It's not just because we have renewable energy, so we need an ordinance. There must be some kind of driving motivation as to why we need ordinance. What do we hope the ordinance to accomplish? And I see that the purpose was added just recently at the top of the document. I'm not sure that when the board asked you to look at a solar ordinance in the first place, that they had those purposes in mind. And I don't even know if some of them are really accomplished in this document, or even should be in the zoning ordinance. I think safe, effective, and efficient use of a solar energy system, it's especially for a residential system, it's part of your house, part of your premises. These are things that are covered by building codes. I don't even know why it's a zoning issue at all. It's safe, efficient use of a system. And I'm not sure how this enhances public health and safety and welfare either. I mean, I would start with the purpose and then develop an ordinance. So I hope as we revise this again and include wind, let's say, or whatever, that we start with a very sharply focused purpose of it. I was really happy to hear the presentation for the Dark Skies Initiative, because what I heard is they came in with, this is the problem, and here are some suggested ways to solve exactly that problem, which I think is the best approach to do it. And I think if you do this with solar, you're going to end up without much of anything in the accessory use solar that is residential, because there's not much that isn't already covered somewhere. But that's just a prediction. I think the lot coverage thing might be the only thing that stays there. A lot of this stuff is building codes and stuff. Anyway, that's my general comment. I'll make the same comment from the board when it goes back to them. Again, I agree with Christina though, that by and large, the commercial side of it looks pretty good.
Okay, thanks, Patrick. Yeah, I think part of this is driving to the input, so it's just right the first time, you know, I know there's a lot of other townships that are in turmoil over renewable energy. I'd like to avoid it, so awesome. Okay, do we need a motion to request this to the board to look at the renewables or
Yeah.
change the ordinance scope? And I'd like to make a motion to request the Sylvan Township Board redirect the planning commission to look at a renewable energy ordinance that includes wind, geothermal, in addition to solar, and other emerging technologies that could come into play within the renewable energy.
You got that written down, right?
Yes.
All in favor? Motion passed.
I'm sorry, who's second?
Okay,
Leah.
okay, now under new business, site plan for Consumers Energy regulatory station site. Approved in July. Anyone from Consumers Energy here? Would you like to just give us a brief 2-minute review? That's all.
Good evening, board and community. Damien Wetzel, project manager. Damien Wetzel, WETZ, Consumers Energy, project manager for this specific site. Just up the road, at 52 and 94 there. I'll wait for our project engineer to post the exhibit.
We're just basically changing the grading, changing the process.
Very little, requesting an amendment to the previously approved site plan.
It's primary to all vehicles, for your friendly access, I believe.
That is one of the additions to allow access to the launcher. For maintenance and then also for our vehicles to turn around in there.
What is a launcher?
Okay. Okay, so part of our pipeline integrity and safety program. Everybody's aware of the pipeline replacement project. Going through town, very visible, right? Well, we just don't put the pipe in, weld it up and put it in. Go through a lot of safety measures like a hydro test and such. But every so many years, regulatory agencies, that being Michigan Public Service Commission is one of them, we have to run a tool through the line. It's kind of like an X-ray, okay? Kind of like you get a CAT scan, right, or an MRI, but this is preventive maintenance. So I believe it's within every 7 years, we have to run a tool through it and make sure the wall thickness is satisfactory, because it's pressurized pipe. And that tool has to be inserted in the line. Well, how do you do that when it's buried underground? You have what we call launchers. It's basically a above ground, 40-foot long piece of pipe with a door on it that you insert the tool, which is kind of like a mobile X-ray machine. You push it through and it records all this data, it comes back, and then we evaluate the data.
So you don't ride in it?
No, I would not ride in it.
Okay, thank you. And this is the drawing, you want to just give us a 2-minute overview?
I will make it quick, yes, it's, so we have the site plan approved last year. I'm trying to address the board and the community too. But this is at the front, so this is near M52. What we're doing here is we're adding a little bit of piping, some meters, just like with water meters or any kind of flow meters. We're adding a couple meter runs because this is an interchange, expanding the site. Basically the grayed out area here. So the additional piping, and that will also allow for a turnaround. So you aren't pulling in and trying to back out. What happens when you back things up sometimes.
That's a big launcher.
Yeah, well, let me get to the launcher. You want to see the other site? So we have two sites up by M52. That's called the 1200A. And then further to the east, remember it's a 125 acre parcel. Believe Ruben Lesser farms it. So here's about a quarter mile, half mile down that lane. We're adding a launcher. Remember I mentioned the launchers, we're adding those to the new pipeline so we can access it with a tool. And essentially adding this turnaround area here. So adding additional stones and grading.
Gravel and fence.
Yes, and so when we expand that out, we have to make sure the site's secure also.
I don't have any other questions. Carol, I'll tell you, the official way to have a motion to approve the site plan. That's correct.
Yes.
All right, so I will make a motion to approve Swimmers Energy Regulatory Site Plan to 5/28/2023 as a minor amendment.
I think that was meant to be 20.
Pardon?
It's 2020.
Or 2020. No, that's,
I saw that too.
oh, I'm sorry, you're right.
If you're making the motion.
Did I put 23 on there?
Yeah,
Sorry.
because-
Sorry.
Unless you pre-approved it.
Yeah, sorry, I will make that correction.
I'll make a motion during second.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Motion approved.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, we are in minutes.
Damon?
I'm typing. So one of the recommendations, you might want to amend your motion, was that the, MCI had some recommendations to be done on that site, which you all got a copy of.
So specifically, item 3 on Midwestern Consulting, that your township engineers review. There was an existing culvert, that was not called out to be removed. We certainly intend to remove it as we expand that gravel area out. We don't want to leave that there, may collapse in 20, 30 years, so.
Yeah.
We concur
So,
and comply with that.
So then, I'll take the amendment to, thanks for question. To address the concerns that is addressed by Midwestern letter of April 19, 2023 to the motion.
Okay, so Mike amended the motion. And Cliff, you got a second? Okay.
To address the issues as addressed. It was seconded by Will. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The amendment is motion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, now we're gonna have a public hearing. Request for special use of guns on those farms. 2039 North and 52, 5 guns. For section 3808 agricultural, commercial, tourism, business. 5 events listed. So anyone here from Rob Mills to speak of? In your name, sir?
Adam.
Adam. Okay. Anything you'd like to tell us about this before?
You've had a chance to, sit down and review it, but essentially we're just looking for permission to hold these 5 events. The threshold number of anticipated guests is gonna be above 350, which requires, the planning commission approval. So we just wanted to be here to answer any questions you have about it.
Okay. So I'll give you my observation. So anything that's happened in 2024 needs to come back here. Okay, we don't pre-approve. Your Rob Hills needs to come in over here. That's what they're doing here. So we're not gonna do things pre or off.
How early do you recommend we come in?
January.
January?
I'd submit it in December for January. For the January, submit it in December so it can get to the January. If you submit it in January, it comes in February.
Gotcha. I submitted this, I think, originally in February this year.
Well, technically, the original fireworks application went in November,
But that went to, the board, for the board.
So what do you have me to do?
But it's anything that's in 2024 needs to come back. So if I go through the list, it's fireworks this year or next year?
The fires should be next year.
Okay, so that's not,
Correct.
so we'll take that one on. Event number 2, this year or next year?
This year.
Event number 3,
Yeah, so this year, the only event that would be next year would be the Easter egg hunt and the fireworks display.
that one will be 2024. Okay. Now, believe we need to have fire station, fire approval for these events also too, correct? It's Carol, is that my understanding correct?
Yeah. I haven't got anything back from them.
So we don't have anything from the fire department. Is there also a gathering permit for fire too?
Not for us, but for the board. And that would be for the fireworks. So they're very separate entities. So they can't, because they have agricultural tourism is what they've been granted. So that's why they have to come in for special use under that ordinance. The gathering permit is a board action. It's a police power. We're not yet.
Okay, so I'm gonna suggest that we table this until we get fire department permit. We'll have to bring it back.
So the fire department permit is for the fire.
For all the 2023 months. They have to have approval for the fire.
I see that in the agricultural tourism ordinance.
We have all agencies reviewing. I mean, it's reviewed by Midwestern Consulting, I review it, CAPA reviews. Anytime you have a certain number of events, all agencies review all special use permits.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions about Robin Hills in general. So are you farming out there in your ag tourism?
Yeah, there are
Or
required under the ordinance.
so what are you farming?
We got certified organic vegetables, we got sheep, and we got goat.
So you brought the animals back. Okay, good. That's good. Is the aquaculture still running on?
The aquaculture is not run,
It's not running.
livestock.
Do you expect to be selling animals or produce? this year?
We do.
Yeah.
And
Okay, good. The other thing that, I noticed is that you were actually running, warehouse sales type events. Earlier this year, and you also had an Easter egg hunt that wasn't included, right? So what I'd like to do. I'd like to get an opinion from Mr. Fall in regards to the activities that are planned for Robinville respond to their appropriateness of the tourism ordinance. And have that ready for the next meeting, so we. Does that sound reasonable? I think we need to have that, because really Rob Mills has morphed into something different than what was initially envisioned. So I'd like to get the attorney's opinion on what's really telling going forward. Okay. Comment back?
I just have, can we get like really specific what's needed for next meeting? Like. What are the next steps, and requirements for next steps? So that we don't do like every month.
Well, I'd like to have, I haven't read through the ag tourism ordinance in a long time, but part of it is getting Mr. Paul's opinion, because as I look at this, like the fireworks festival, to me, that doesn't fall under what's an ag tourism. And so was summer celebration, I have no idea what that is, right? I mean, this is kind of worked into a large bar restaurant, this ag tourism. I understand you're trying to bring the agriculture part back here, but at the same time, we want to stay within the framework of the ag tourism. That's, so it's kind of hard to, I'd like to hear what Mr. Paul's are. And I don't know if you've got some other information that could help the attorney understand the scope of these events and what are their plans. That would actually help.
You have some. You have some contact information for the attorney, so I can follow up?
Yeah, I think,
Yeah, you give it to me and I give it to him.
So
But
really, this is the practical community to make sure they understand what's
Yeah,
going on.
and our only intention is to operate in compliance with the ag tourism order.
Okay, no, that's fine, we just. I mean, I remember when we.
Thanks for those comments, I echo Mike's sentiment that Robin Farms had more away from their original intended position of being agritourism, originally those intended for paying school bus loads of children out there for sheep shearings and things of that nature, and there's cooking classes. You know, learn how to make an apple pie, or learn to farmers, a lot of things like that. And as Mike mentioned, something that I don't have how, it might be just a bar restaurant, because I don't think that originally we were supposed to have a liquor license out there. But that being, again, for the events that are scheduled, Market Melody of Mansfield, what's that mean? What does it entail? What are the times that you plan on doing that? Same again, the summer celebration, the fireworks. I'd like, you know, when you come in the next time, I think it can help everybody understand what the scope of each of those is, the times, what's going to happen, what we can expect. When you talk about 500 to 800 people, you're talking probably about, outside of the 2 people to a car, so you're talking about 250 to 400 cars. What are you gonna do about traffic? How are we gonna handle them? What's your local police say? Same with the end of celebration, summer celebration. The other events are 350 to 500. We're still talking cars, dust, headlights, different things like this, that we were looking at originally when this came under site to approve originally. Those are all areas that we wanted to make sure that it did not impact the overall community. Although it's a nice addition to our community, like I said, it has morphed into something that originally was looked at a little bit more oversight.
Thanks, guys. You could identify yourself, please.
Oh, Ron, perfect.
Ron Erskine?
Yeah.
Okay, good, thanks, Ron.
A couple of questions. Is there a set time at night when the noise is supposed to stop?
Yeah, it's part of the ordinance, I think, I don't know, I have a correct on it, it's 10 o'clock these days, if you go.
10 PM for amplified music, correct?
Yeah,
Well, a month or so ago, they had a tent. I don't know what it was, but I'm sure it went until,
10:30.
I think midnight or so when I fell asleep, but I still hear the something, low, it's not so much the volume, it's the, bass.
Okay,
You know, it comes out there, so the kid driving by in the car and the windows rattle,
yeah,
it stays right there.
I think, yeah, you have monitoring devices here, right?
You do, and there's a threshold decibel limit that we agree to at the property line.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's
Do
not.
you know, do you know the date of that, sir?
I can't.
Okay.
I say a month ago.
Month ago. Oh, yeah, maybe if you took a look through your record, talk about that.
Sure, yeah.
But I know you've got the, for the data recording.
And I know that when this all started, I can't remember who it was, up there said, if there's a problem, call them. Yeah, what's that phone number?
It's Carol's.
Next question, will you answer when I call it?
I don't have a township cell phone.
Scott, you have another question?
Yeah, real quick, not to throw any water on this gentleman's judgment or question is harassing me, but, I have heard from people that live kind of out that way that sometimes late at night, thump is either hat stamping or dirt stamping. No, I'm just saying,
Well,
it's a low frequency, that's what I'm trying to think.
okay, no, I'm sure.
Get ready for the wall.
I'll have them take a look at it, we'll let us know. Actually. So the other thing, we did get a letter from Midwestern.
I just wanted to, I'm Terrace Aaron's Chamber of Commerce here in town.
Yeah.
I just wanted, it sounds like we don't need to talk about the fireworks per se, but to the very valid questions posed before, I want you to know that we have all of that information ready when time comes. Talking to the police, Alan Hunt, the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department, how to handle the traffic, where the parking will go, how the volunteers will be handled, where the money's coming from, who's operating the fireworks, all of those things are gonna be able to supply to you whenever they're necessary.
Yeah, that's for next year, right? So-
It is. I did have one comment on that, just throw this out there. Totally makes sense to me. At the same time, bigger events like this do take a very long time to fundraise and market. So if the council would ever see it fit to think about adjusting that, so that I don't have to try to cram all that in 4 months, that would be a wonderful thing. But if that's not an option, that's not an option.
Yeah, I'm also not sure, this is part I want to get the attorney's opinion, but I'm not necessarily certain fireworks fit into our ag tourism. Right, so this, I'm not sure this is a event that we'd recommend it or approve, so. I hate to put the cart
Plus
before
the
the horse.
events that are, this is coupled with 4 other events,
Understood.
so that
All I'm speaking
application
to is
was one.
thing.
So if you have things for the fireworks for the board, that's separate than what
I just
they're
wanted-
reviewing for all the events.
I just want
So
to make sure
that's
you
the
know that
totality.
you can answer any of those questions.
Yeah,
That comes-
and for one event, that's great, but doesn't help the other 4 events. So I appreciate that.
Well, thanks for anything else, Patrick.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about the specifics of it, but what I have heard over the years is that actual concerns from the residents typically go into the area of things like noise and stress here and or potentially traffic. And those are, these potentially legitimate concerns. I'm not able to measure that. But what I would like to say is that when it gets into the technicalities of how the ag tourism ordinance operates, there's probably some gray areas. And I would just advocate to be a little bit lenient on those gray areas and focus instead on the things that really matter to them. Again, I don't know the technicalities, but you're there to serve the residents, right? What do they really care about? I also am concerned about the lead time, as Mr. Aaron just mentioned, on some of these requests. If there was gonna be a big event in February of the year, and you have to submit the application in January, that really doesn't give a lot of time. Plan the event.
Yeah, it's
Do that.
annual review, it's the way it works.
Yeah, there might be a flaw in the ordinance.
Oh, I mean, if somebody wants to bring it earlier, that's fine.
It should be, at least 6 months in advance should be enough.
Thank you.
Anyway, that's my comment.
Yeah, no, those are all good points. Yeah, is there any other? Carol? Anyone else? Okay. I'm gonna close the public hearing now. Planning Commissioner, any thoughts or comments?
Actually, yeah, where can we find the Irish?
In your blue book.
Oh, God, yeah, okay.
I don't know if your book's been updated. I don't know what book you have.
It's online.
And it's online.
So. I should-
It's online. It's on Unicode. All the ordinances are on Unicode.
Thank you.
And I can send you the link if you'd like.
Me too.
Okay.
Tom, anything? Thomas, anything you want to?
Well, this is a work in motion anyways, from what they originated from and where it went to make it profitable. There's two different things. That's why I think they were supposed to have some sort of liquor license there, but it didn't turn into a full-fledged bar and stuff. So the times changed, so we had to change a little bit with that. I understand that. And we have to try to work with them in some areas because it sure beats houses.
Yeah, no, I understand. What?
Now, I would just like to see more parking and more about staffing. I mean, some of these are large events, over 300 people, with 15 staff members, that's a 20-to-1 ratio. That's a pretty low ratio. So I'd like to see a little more on that.
Sandy, how about you?
I think it's really interesting that you're looking at doing events. I think they'll probably be more well attended than you anticipate.
Oh, good.
And, my only concern is making sure that there's, somebody who's in control of the traffic going on to 52. That's my biggest concern, because there's not a lot of traffic there that late at night. And then when you have an event, then it's just, you just need somebody to watch out for.
Okay, so sounds like if I'm hearing the planning commission correctly, the issues that that you've identified, could use some more explanation, some more information. Would be how the traffic will be handled, how noise would be measured, safety, staffing ratios, health, coordinating with other agencies. And then Mike, to your point, I think your issue is more like how the farm is being characterized in terms of agriculture or otherwise.
Right, the usage pattern, what's the business plan look like kind of going forward, like, does it really fit in with the actors? Patrick kind of talked about too, and I realize it's respectfully, but I also want to make sure we get an opinion from the town attorney that we're not setting ourselves up for other issues that are also.
And so what are the next steps for me?
Well, I've got a couple other things there. But Steve, anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I'm in agreement with what's been said, but.
Okay. So while we're just, so as Cliff had brought up, there's some information that came back from the Midwestern Consulting Agent. Did you see the email?
No, it was draft, and so I didn't send out
Draft?
the email about parking management and Sue's concerns about the surface of the overflow parking.
Yeah.
You saw that one, and I just got this afternoon an email from Adam, but he's working, it was a draft and it was just in text, so.
So Adam, I'll just give you some high level visual. They're talking about visual delineation of the parking spaces. For overflow parking, that should be provided. Include chalk lines, string lines, staking, etc. Parking management plan for how visitors will be directed to temporary parking during the events. It's also stated, if after the event, the condition of overflow parking has been deteriorated due to parking use, the applicant shall remedy any deficiencies. The township engineer shall inspect and review for further repairs necessary, right? So these are, and then there's also things with dry dusting conditions, applying sealant for keeping the dust down within 24 hours. Erosion of the parking lot, the overflow lots start to exceed 5 events proposed with the township, permanent improvements should be added. His suggestion is that if the overflow lot starts to exceed 5 events proposed, permanent improvements to the parking service. Because I think they'll probably send an updated one.
Yes, I'm sure I'll get it from them tomorrow.
And then this will come for us. So you'll see that. Okay. So we can. But, and I think the other one said we're waiting on the fire department, correct? To come back.
Yeah, I need to get something from them.
We need to have that. Yeah. I'm gonna make a motion to table this until the next meeting. And then give you time to come back to other information, look at it. And also I'd like to get the information from Mr. Paul about the events and scope, so that he gets a chance to look at it. He can provide us with that summary of his feedback and the very applicability to back to us.
Okay, and that's so we'll be back on the May agenda or the June agenda?
For my ears. We can do a postpone to May. But what do you think, Carol?
I should hear something back from Paul, so we should be able to get it on
May?
20. I'm sorry, the 25th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll try to get that done. Okay. So I'll make a motion to. Do I need a motion to postpone?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to.
Table?
Table the, thanks. I thought you used it up for Robert's Farm until May 25th. Second by Taylor. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's passed. So thanks, Evan, from them. We go on to the next. Is there any other last book like comments, concerns from the planning commission members? Sandy, do you have any?
No.
So, did you like going to that big solar farm?
Pardon me?
Did you have fun at that big solar farm?
I just want to take a few minutes to say that if you've ever been around a solar farm, particularly if you've been in Escanaba in the 90s, those big windmills were really noisy. Just think of this. Every engineering senior has been in college, has been working on how to make this stuff better. And boy, have they ever. So we were standing not that far away from one of the big wind generators. It's over 500 feet tall. The wind was about 12 miles an hour and you could not hear anything. So that's what, I mean, I will talk on and on forever because it was fascinating, because the technology has changed so much, so fast, that the large solar installation that we visited, it was, I think last year was, so they did it in 3 phases. Just the panels themselves are different from the first phase to the second phase to the third phase. One of the people on our trip had it's an instrument that measures decibels of sound. So that's where the setbacks come in. They're really important because when we were at the setback, we couldn't really hear it. But as we walked closer to it, you could hear it. And it was where it was supposed to be. I was totally impressive. And it changes minute to minute. With every graduating class, there's somebody coming out with some crazy new thing.
Thanks. Well, thanks for the feedback.
I'd just like to say something positive for Robin Hills. I've heard good feedback from a few people that have attended events, enjoyed them. So it's not all bad news. I think there's.
I agree. I think, I mean, you talk about the fair, employ the fairgrounds, the congestion here. This is all the time.
Then there's a roundabout, so we can.
This is the first time that you've done this many things, so the first time you do something's always much more complicated than anything in the future, it's just trying to figure it out.
How about you?
The other gentleman said he was in contact with Chelsea Police Department to help out. And Washtenaw County. Washtenaw County to help out. So I'm assuming the closer we get, if this is even the direction we're going to, they're gonna have to hire some deputies to come out there and monitor the traffic and stuff, to get a traffic plan. Because you're not gonna have fireworks and just turn them all loose at once.
100%. I grew up in Manchester. I know all about that insane traffic that comes from that on display. Have you ever been there for that? It's a nightmare.
And I totally gonna have people parking all over Guiding Creation there, and what I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'm not sure the neighboring households are gonna enjoy that. That's something else we got.
Well, I was involved in some fireworks. On Bush Road, and I never heard a complaint about the neighbors, really, although it was just a short time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like to
One night.
myself, I just,
This is
other people's property rights, right?
You're gonna get people parking outside.
Yeah. That's part of the fun, it's trying to find a place to park. Yeah.
Just saying that he's already thought about Washtenaw County and some of the parking, so they're gonna have to hire outside people to come in, and maybe Chelsea, wherever they can get help. Also too, but they seem to be aware of the traffic stuff already, so I think they can probably manage if they have enough time to get it coordinated.
I think that's something that needs to come in with Robin Hills as well, you know, so it isn't just the fireworks event, you have multiple events, but you have multiple cars.
Right.
And I think that's the same thing we're talking about. So it seems to gotten stuck on the fireworks, which that's the largest event. But the other events as well equally need attention.
Right, and I know the ordinance dictates that all parking should remain on site, and it is a 129 acre property, and we will provide all that parking, and a management plan to oversee that, so.
And maybe you'll end up needing a contract with the county sheriff for ingress and egress from 52.
Sure.
Any case, I mean, this is the first time I think we've been in such an open these plans. This is. Courtney, anything you want to do?
No, I think we're all just gonna learn together.
Okay, I think that covers everything on the agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second by Steve, meeting's adjourned at 8:25.